was the strongest warrior of his people, but something unseen was destroying him from within. When a mysterious woman is taken prisoner, what she finds could change everything, not just for the chief, but for the entire tribe. What was poisoning the leader of the Comanche, and who would dare to betray him from the shadows? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The Texas sun blazed mercilessly over the vast plains in the summer of 1867, casting long shadows across the Comanche encampment nestled near the Brazos River. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the scent of sage and wild grass across the land that had belonged to the Comanche people for generations. In the center of the village, inside the largest teepee adorned with painted buffalo and eagle symbols, Chief Tahoma lay on a bed of furs, his breathing labored and shallow. At 28 years old, Tahoma should have been in his prime, leading his warriors on hunts across the endless prairie, but instead, he had spent the last 3 years growing progressively weaker. His once powerful frame, standing over 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and muscular arms that could draw the strongest bow, had become gaunt. His bronze skin, which used to glow with health under the sun, now appeared pallid and covered in a thin sheen of sweat. His deep-set brown eyes, usually fierce and alert, were clouded with pain and exhaustion. The medicine man, old Pahayoko, knelt beside the chief, burning sacred herbs and chanting prayers to the spirits. He had tried every remedy known to the Comanche people: teas brewed from willow bark, poultices made from prickly pear, smoke ceremonies, and purification rituals in the sweat lodge. Nothing worked. The sickness that plagued their chief remained a mystery, defying all traditional healing methods. Outside the teepee, the sounds of the village continued as women prepared meals, children played among the horses, and warriors maintained their weapons. But a shadow of worry hung over everyone. Without a strong chief, their band was vulnerable to attacks from rival tribes, and the ever-encroaching white settlers who pushed westward, claiming Comanche lands as their own. Tahoma's sister, Nayeli, a woman of 25 with long black hair braided with leather and beads, entered the teepee carrying a wooden bowl of cool water. Her face bore the same strong features as her brother, with high cheekbones and a determined jaw. She had been caring for Tahoma tirelessly, her heart breaking as she watched the once mighty leader of their people fade day by day. "Brother, you must drink," she urged gently, lifting his head and bringing the bowl to his lips. Tahoma managed only a few sips before falling back, exhausted from the simple effort. "The council grows restless," Nayeli said quietly, dipping a cloth in the water and pressing it to his fevered brow. "They speak of choosing a new chief if you do not recover soon. Kateni believes he should lead the band." Tahoma's eyes flickered with anger at the mention of his rival. Kateni was ambitious and cruel, a warrior who believed strength came only from violence and conquest. Under his leadership, their people would surely be led into conflicts they could not win. "I will not let him take our people down a path of destruction," Tahoma whispered, his voice hoarse. "But I cannot fight this enemy within my own body." 3 days later, a war party returned to the village with unexpected prizes, supplies raided from a settler wagon and a captive. The warriors rode in triumphantly, their horses laden with flour, salt, blankets, and iron cooking pots. Behind them, tied to a rope and stumbling in the dust, walked a young white woman. Catherine Morrison was 26 years old, and despite the dirt covering her clothes and the fear evident in her blue-gray eyes, her beauty was striking. She had flowing auburn hair that caught the sunlight like copper, fair skin now flushed from the heat and exertion, and delicate features that spoke of refinement and education. Her traveling dress, though torn and dusty, had once been of good quality, suggesting she came from a family of some means. The warriors had found her wagon broken down on the trail, her husband and their guide both dead from Kiowa arrows. The Kiowa had taken the horses and most valuable goods, leaving Catherine hiding beneath the wagon bed, certain she would die in that desolate place. When the Comanche warriors discovered her, she had expected immediate death, but instead they brought her to their village as a captive. The villagers gathered to see the new prisoner, some viewing her with curiosity, others with open hostility. White settlers had brought disease, death, and displacement to the Comanche people. Many in the village had lost family members to conflicts with settlers and soldiers. Kateni, an imposing warrior with a scarred face and cold eyes, strode forward and grabbed Catherine roughly by the arm. "This one will make a good slave," he announced loudly in Comanche. "She will serve me and my family." But Nayeli stepped forward, her eyes flashing with defiance. "The council has not yet decided her fate, Kateni. You presume too much. Your brother grows weaker each day." Kateni shot back. "Soon I will lead this band, and then I will decide the fate of all captives." The tension between them was palpable, and the gathered villagers watched with keen interest. Before the confrontation could escalate, old Pahayoko emerged from Tahoma's teepee and studied the white woman with ancient, knowing eyes. "Bring her," he commanded simply, then turned and walked back inside. Catherine was dragged into the chief's teepee, her heart pounding with terror. She had heard terrible stories about what happened to white captives among the Comanche. When she saw Tahoma lying on the furs, clearly gravely ill, confusion joined her fear. Pahayoko spoke to her in broken English, words he had learned from traders over the years. "You know healing? Medicine?" Catherine's mind raced. She did know something of medicine and healing. Her father had been a physician in Boston, and she had assisted him for years before marrying and heading west with her husband, who had dreams of starting a ranch in Texas. She had a natural gift for healing, an intuitive understanding of herbs and remedies that her father had encouraged and developed. "Yes," she answered, her voice trembling but clear. "I know some healing arts. My father was a doctor." Pahayoko studied her intently, then spoke to Nayeli in Comanche, explaining what the white woman had said. Nayeli looked skeptical but desperate. She had watched her brother suffer for so long, and every treatment had failed. "If you can help my brother, you may earn your freedom," Nayeli said in halting English, words she had learned from a captive woman years before. "If you fail, or if you harm him, you will die slowly and painfully. Do you understand?" Catherine nodded, swallowing hard. She approached Tahoma cautiously, kneeling beside him. Even weakened by illness, she could see he had been a magnificent man. His features were noble and strong. His long black hair spread across the furs like a raven's wing. Something stirred in her heart, a feeling she quickly pushed aside. This was a matter of survival, nothing more. She placed her hand gently on his forehead, feeling the heat of fever burning through him. She examined his eyes, noting the yellowed whites, and asked through Nayeli about his symptoms. The weakness, the fever, the pain in his abdomen, the inability to keep food down. "I need to examine him more thoroughly," Catherine said, "and I need to know everything he has eaten and drunk, every treatment that has been tried." For the next hour, with Nayeli translating, Catherine conducted a careful examination while Pahayoko watched suspiciously, ready to strike her down if she made any move to harm the chief. Catherine's medical knowledge, combined with her keen observational skills, led her to several possibilities, but she needed more information. "Has the chief always drunk from the same source?" she asked. "The same water? The same vessels?" Nayeli frowned, considering. "He has his own special drinking vessel, made of clay by our finest potter. It was a gift when he became chief. He drinks only from it, as is his right as our leader." "May I see this vessel?" Catherine asked, a suspicion forming in her mind. The decorated clay cup was brought to her, and Catherine examined it carefully in the light filtering through the teepee's opening. The glaze was beautiful, a deep blue-green color that shimmered. Her heart sank as recognition dawned. She had seen similar pottery before, beautiful but deadly. "This glaze contains copper," she explained urgently to Nayeli. "The beautiful color comes from copper salts. If the pottery was not fired properly, or if the glaze was made incorrectly, it can leach poison into whatever liquid is held in it. Your brother is not sick with a disease. He is being slowly poisoned every time he drinks from this cup." Nayeli's eyes widened in shock and horror. She translated quickly for Pahayoko, whose weathered face showed both disbelief and dawning understanding. It would explain why none of their spiritual remedies had worked, why the sickness had come on gradually and persisted for so long. "Who made this cup?" Catherine pressed. "Who gave it to the chief?" The answer, when it came, sent a chill through everyone in the teepee. The potter who had crafted the special vessel was Kateni's mother. a woman known for her beautiful glazed pottery. Whether the poisoning was intentional or accidental remained unclear, but the implications were staggering. The revelation about the poisoned cup spread through the village like wildfire on dry prairie grass. Nayeli immediately ordered that Tahoma be given only water from gourds and wooden vessels that other members of the tribe used regularly. Catherine remained by his side, administering remedies she prepared from plants she recognized growing near the river. Milk thistle to help cleanse his body of the poison, dandelion root to support his weakened system, and yarrow to reduce the inflammation in his organs. Within 2 days, the change in Tahoma was remarkable. The fever that had plagued him for months began to subside, his eyes cleared, and he was able to keep down food for the first time in weeks. Color returned to his bronze skin, and the terrible weakness that had confined him to his bed gradually lifted. As his strength returned, so did his authority over the band. Catherine worked tirelessly, changing the poultices on his abdomen, preparing herbal teas, and monitoring his recovery with the focused attention her father had taught her. She found herself studying Tahoma's face as he slept, noting the strong lines of his jaw, the proud nose, the way his chest rose and fell with increasingly steady breaths. When he woke and their eyes met, she felt something shift inside her, a connection she had never experienced with her late husband, whose marriage to her had been arranged by their families for social and financial advantage. Tahoma, for his part, watched this white woman who had saved his life with growing fascination. Catherine's gentle hands as she tended to him, the intelligence that shone in her blue-gray eyes, the compassion she showed despite being a captive among people she had been taught to fear, all of this intrigued him deeply. He began to ask her questions, their conversations growing longer as his health improved, and as both struggled to bridge the language barrier with a mixture of English, Comanche, and gestures. "Why did you help me?" he asked one evening as the sun set outside, painting the teepee walls with orange and crimson light. "Your people and mine are enemies. You could have let me die and perhaps earned favor with the white soldiers." Catherine considered his question carefully before answering. "My father taught me that healing knows no boundaries of race or nation. When someone suffers, and I have the knowledge to help, I must act. To do otherwise would be to betray everything I believe about the value of human life." She paused, then added softly, "And you are not my enemy, Tahoma. I see that now." Their eyes held for a long moment, and unspoken feelings passed between them, feelings that both knew were dangerous and complicated by the vast gulf between their worlds. But while Tahoma recovered, and an unexpected bond grew between the chief and his former captive, darkness gathered in another corner of the village. Kateni watched the chief's recovery with barely concealed fury. His mother, the potter Onawa, had been questioned extensively about the cup. She swore the poisoning had been accidental, that she had not known the glaze recipe she had obtained from a trader was dangerous, but few believed her. The timing had been too convenient, occurring just as Kateni began positioning himself to take leadership of the band. Onawa had been exiled from the village, sent away in disgrace, and Kateni's standing among the warriors had plummeted. His ambitions of becoming chief were now impossible, and he blamed Catherine for exposing the plot and saving Tahoma's life. His hatred for the white woman burned hot and vengeful. On the 7th night after Catherine had identified the poison, Kateni made his move. He crept to the teepee where Catherine now slept, guarded but not imprisoned, for she had earned a measure of trust and freedom through her healing of the chief. He cut through the back of the teepee silently and grabbed Catherine as she slept, clamping a hand over her mouth before she could scream. "You have ruined everything," he hissed in her ear in Comanche, knowing she would understand his tone if not his words. "Now you will pay with your life, and without you to protect him, the chief will sicken again. I will ensure it." He dragged her into the darkness beyond the village, toward the river where he planned to drown her, and make it appear as though she had tried to escape and drowned accidentally. Catherine struggled desperately, managing to bite his hand hard enough to draw blood. Kateni cursed and struck her across the face, stunning her momentarily. But Catherine's absence had been discovered quickly. Nayeli, who had developed genuine affection for the woman who saved her brother, had come to bring Catherine a blanket against the cooling night and found the slashed teepee. Her cry of alarm brought warriors running, and Tahoma, still weak but fueled by fear for Catherine's safety, grabbed his knife and followed the trail toward the river. The scene Tahoma came upon made his blood run cold. In the moonlight reflecting off the water, he saw Kateni forcing Catherine's head beneath the surface of the river, her arms flailing as she fought for her life. Without hesitation, despite his weakened condition, Tahoma launched himself at Kateni with a roar of rage that echoed across the plains. The two men crashed together into the shallow water, and Tahoma's fury gave him strength beyond his current physical capacity. His fists connected with Kateni's face again and again, all the rage he felt at the betrayal, at the months of suffering, at the threat to Catherine's life, pouring out in each blow. Kateni, larger and stronger under normal circumstances, found himself overwhelmed by the chief's primal protective instinct. Other warriors arrived and pulled the two men apart. Catherine lay coughing and gasping on the riverbank, water streaming from her hair and clothes, but alive. Nayeli rushed to her side, wrapping the blanket around her shaking shoulders and helping her sit up. Tahoma stood over Kateni, his chest heaving, water dripping from his body, his dark eyes blazing with an authority that had been absent during his long illness. "You have betrayed your chief, your people, and the sacred trust of our band," he declared in a voice that carried to all who had gathered. "You worked with your mother to poison me so you could seize power. When that plot was discovered, you attempted to murder the woman who saved my life. These crimes cannot be forgiven." Kateni spat blood from his split lip. "She is a white woman, an enemy of our people. She has bewitched you, made you weak. You shame yourself by protecting her." "No," Tahoma said firmly, his voice growing stronger. "She showed compassion and courage when she could have let me die. She used her knowledge to heal rather than to harm. These are the qualities we should honor, regardless of the color of one's skin, or the people from which they come. You are the one who brought shame to our band through your treachery and ambition." The gathered warriors and villagers murmured their agreement. The evidence of Kateni's guilt was clear, and the law of the Comanche was absolute for such betrayals. "You are banished," Tahoma pronounced. "Take your horse and your weapons and leave our lands before the sun rises. If you are ever seen near this band again, you will be killed on sight. Go now and carry the weight of your dishonor wherever you wander." Kateni's face twisted with hate, but he knew he had lost. He stood slowly, water streaming from his body, and cast one last venomous look at Catherine before stalking away toward the village to gather his belongings. Within an hour, he had ridden off into the darkness, and the threat he posed was eliminated. Tahoma turned to Catherine, who still sat wrapped in the blanket, her body trembling from cold and shock. He knelt beside her, and without thinking, he reached out and gently touched her face where Kateni had struck her, his fingers tender against the bruise already forming on her cheek. "You are safe now," he said softly in English, the words he had been practicing with her. "I will not let anyone harm you again." Catherine looked up into his eyes, and the barriers between them seemed to crumble in that moment. Her hand rose to cover his where it still rested against her face, and she felt tears sliding down her cheeks, tears of relief and fear, and something else, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved my life, as I saved yours. We are even now." "No," Tahoma said, shaking his head slowly. "We are not even. We are connected, bound together by something stronger than debt or gratitude." He struggled to find the English words for what he felt. "My heart knows you, Catherine Morrison. It has known you from the moment I first saw your face when the fever finally cleared enough for me to truly look at you." The admission hung in the air between them, and Catherine knew she should deny it, should maintain the distance that society and circumstance demanded. But she could not lie, not to him and not to herself. "I feel it too," she confessed, her voice barely audible above the gentle rushing of the river. "I don't understand it, and I know it's impossible, but I feel it too." Tahoma helped her to her feet, and they stood close together in the moonlight, both aware of the eyes watching them from the gathered villagers, both knowing that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges and opposition from both their peoples. Nayeli approached them, her expression thoughtful and knowing. She had seen the way her brother looked at Catherine, had witnessed the tenderness and care that went beyond simple gratitude. As a woman who had loved and lost her own husband to a raid 3 years prior, she recognized the signs of genuine feeling growing between them. "Come," Nayeli said gently in English. "Catherine needs dry clothes and rest. The night has been long and dangerous, and there will be much to discuss when the sun rises." As they walked back to the village together, Tahoma kept his hand on Catherine's elbow, a gesture of support and protection that did not go unnoticed by the people of the band. Whispers spread through the crowd, some approving, others concerned, but all recognized that something significant had shifted in their community that night. The next morning, Tahoma called a council of the band's elders and senior warriors. Catherine was asked to attend, an unusual honor for a captive, but one that reflected her changed status within the community. She sat beside Nayeli as Tahoma addressed the gathered leaders, his voice strong, and his bearing once again that of a powerful chief. The council gathering took place in the center of the village as the morning sun climbed higher in the cloudless Texas sky. The elders sat in a circle on buffalo robes, their weathered faces grave as they considered the unprecedented situation before them. Tahoma stood before them, fully recovered now, his powerful frame radiating the strength and authority that had made him chief at such a young age. Catherine sat with Nayeli slightly apart from the circle, her heart pounding as she understood that her fate was being decided. "My brothers, my elders, my people," Tahoma began, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd that had gathered to witness the council. "You all know what transpired last night. Kateni, driven by ambition and hatred, attempted to murder the woman who saved my life and exposed the plot that had been slowly killing me for 3 years. He has been banished for his crimes, and justice has been served according to our laws." The elders nodded in agreement. There was no dispute about Kaiteni's guilt or the appropriateness of his punishment. "But now we must address another matter," Tahoma continued, his eyes moving to Catherine. "This woman, Catherine Morrison, came to us as a captive, taken from the white settlers who continue to encroach upon our lands. By the customs of our people, she could have been enslaved, traded, or killed. But she proved herself to be a healer of great skill and compassion. She asked for nothing, expected no mercy, yet she used her knowledge to save the life of her captor when she could have remained silent and let me die." One of the oldest elders, a man named Tuhkuma, whose face was as lined as ancient tree bark, spoke up. "What you say is true, Tahoma. This white woman showed honor and courage, but she is still one of them, one of the people who kill our buffalo, who bring soldiers to drive us from our lands, who break every treaty they make with us. How can we trust her? How can we know this is not some elaborate deception?" Before Tahoma could respond, Catherine rose to her feet. All eyes turned to her as she stood straight and dignified despite her fear. Nayeli made to translate, but Catherine had been learning Comanche words and phrases diligently during her time in the village, and she spoke now in halting but sincere Comanche. "Honored elders," she said, her accent heavy but her words clear enough to understand. "I know your people have suffered greatly at the hands of mine. I do not ask you to forget this or to trust all white people because of my actions. My husband and I came to Texas seeking a new life, but we were foolish and unprepared for the dangers of this land. He died, and I would have died too if your warriors had not found me." She paused, gathering her courage before continuing. "I did not help Chief Tahoma to win favor or to deceive you. I helped him because it was the right thing to do, because my father taught me that healing is sacred and knows no boundaries. I helped him because when I looked at him suffering, I saw not an enemy, but a human being in pain, and I had the knowledge to ease that pain." Her eyes found Tahoma's across the circle, and the emotion in her gaze was unmistakable. "I helped him because from the moment I truly saw him, spoke with him, learned his heart, I could not bear to see him suffer. I helped him because I have come to care for him more deeply than I knew was possible." A murmur ran through the assembled people at this bold admission. Catherine had just declared her feelings publicly, something that violated every rule of propriety in both Comanche and white society. But her honesty and vulnerability were impossible to dismiss. Tahoma stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Catherine's face. "I called this council not just to discuss Catherine's fate as a captive, he said, his voice resonating with conviction. "I called it to ask permission to make her my wife, to bring her fully into our tribe as one of our people." The murmuring grew louder, some voices raised in protest, others in support. It was not unheard of for Comanche warriors to take captive women as wives, but for a chief to do so, especially with a white woman when tensions with settlers were so high, was controversial and potentially dangerous. Nayeli rose and spoke with passion. "My brother nearly died because of treachery from within our own people, from one of our own blood. This white woman, this outsider, proved more loyal and honorable than Kateni, who was born Comanche. She has shown us that character matters more than the color of one's skin, or the people from which one comes. I support my brother's wish to make Catherine his wife." Old Tukuma shook his head slowly. "The heart wants what it wants, and I do not doubt the sincerity of either the chief or this woman. But we must think of the practical consequences. If Tahoma marries a white woman, the soldiers and settlers will use this as justification for attacks. They will say we are taking their women, and they will come with more guns and more numbers to punish us." Another elder, a woman named Hutsu, who was known for her wisdom, spoke thoughtfully. "What Tukuma says has truth in it. But consider this. Catherine Morrison's husband is dead, killed by Kiowa arrows. She has no family to return to in this territory, and if we simply released her, she would likely die trying to reach the nearest settlement alone. The white people already hate us and attack us regardless of whether we give them specific reasons. At least if she stays here as Tahoma's wife, she may serve as a bridge between our peoples, someone who understands both worlds and can perhaps help us navigate the difficult times ahead." The council debated for over 2 hours, voices rising and falling as arguments were made on both sides. Catherine and Tahoma waited with barely concealed anxiety, their futures hanging in the balance. Finally, old Tukuma raised his hand for silence. "We have heard many voices and many viewpoints," he said. "Now we must decide. Those who support Chief Tahoma's wish to marry Catherine Morrison and bring her fully into our tribe, stand and be counted." Nayeli stood immediately, followed by Hutsu and 3 other elders. After a moment's hesitation, 2 more rose to their feet. The majority had spoken. "It is decided," Tukuma announced, though his expression remained troubled. "Catherine Morrison may become the wife of Chief Tahoma, if she willingly consents. She will be adopted into our tribe, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. But know this, Tahoma, you are binding your fate to hers, and hers to ours. If trouble comes from this union, you will bear the responsibility for it." Tahoma nodded solemnly. "I accept this responsibility, as I accept all responsibilities that come with being chief of our people." He turned to Catherine, extending his hand to her. "Catherine Morrison, will you consent to become my wife, to join our people, to share in our struggles and our triumphs?" Catherine felt tears streaming down her face as she took his hand and rose to stand beside him. "Yes," she said clearly in both English and Comanche. "Yes, I will." The marriage ceremony took place 3 days later, giving time for preparations, and for Catherine to be properly instructed in the customs and responsibilities she was undertaking. Nayeli took charge of preparing Catherine, teaching her the traditional ways, helping her create the buckskin dress she would wear for the ceremony, adorned with intricate beadwork and fringe. On the day of the wedding, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Catherine stood before the assembled tribe wearing her new dress, her auburn hair braided and woven with wildflowers. Tahoma stood opposite her, magnificent in his ceremonial clothing, his chest bare and painted with symbols of strength and leadership, his long black hair adorned with eagle feathers. The ceremony itself was simple but profound. Pahayoko, the medicine man, blessed their union with prayers and sacred smoke. Catherine and Tahoma exchanged gifts. She gave him a beautifully beaded knife sheath she had made with Niley's help, and he gave her a necklace of turquoise and silver that had belonged to his mother. They shared food from the same bowl and water from the same gourd, symbolizing that they would now share all things in life. As the ceremony concluded and the feasting began, Tahoma drew Catherine aside to a quiet spot overlooking the river, where he had saved her life just days before. The water reflected the last light of day, and the air was filled with the sounds of celebration from the village behind them. "Are you afraid?" Tahoma asked gently, taking both her hands in his. "You have given up everything you knew, everything you were, to be here with me." Catherine smiled, and for the first time since her husband's death, since the terrifying capture, since all the trials she had endured, she felt truly at peace. "I gave up nothing that mattered," she said softly. "The life I had before was not really mine. It was the life my parents wanted for me, the life society expected. But this, here with you, this is the life I choose for myself." She reached up to touch his face, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. "When I was hiding under that wagon, certain I would die, I prayed not for rescue but for my life to have meant something, to have mattered. I never imagined that prayer would be answered like this." Tahoma pulled her close, and they stood wrapped in each other's arms as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. "You saved my life, Catherine. But more than that, you saved me from a death of the spirit that was happening even as my body was being poisoned. I had become cynical, hard, seeing only enemies everywhere. You reminded me that there is goodness in the world, that compassion and courage exist in unexpected places. We have a difficult road ahead," Catherine said realistically, her head resting against his chest where she could hear his heartbeat strong and steady. "Your people will face more pressure from the settlers and soldiers. My people will see me as a traitor. We will be caught between two worlds. Then we will create our own world," Tahoma replied with conviction. "Right here, with our people, we will build something new. We will teach our children, if we are blessed with them, to take the best from both peoples, to see with eyes unclouded by hate or prejudice. It will not be easy, but nothing worth having ever is." They kissed then, a long, tender kiss that sealed their commitment to each other and to the uncertain future they would face together. When they finally pulled apart, they saw Nayeli approaching with a warm smile on her face. "Come," she said in English, which she had been practicing diligently. "The people wait to celebrate with you. There is food and dancing, and everyone wants to welcome Catherine properly into the tribe." The celebration lasted long into the night, with drumming and dancing around a great fire that sent sparks spiraling up into the star-filled sky. Catherine learned traditional dances, laughing as she stumbled through the steps while Nayeli and other women of the tribe taught her with patience and good humor. Tahoma watched her with undisguised love and pride, seeing how naturally she was beginning to fit into the community, how the initial wariness of the people was transforming into acceptance and even affection. As the weeks passed, Catherine proved herself invaluable to the tribe. She combined her medical knowledge with the traditional healing practices Pahayoko taught her, creating treatments that were more effective than either tradition alone. She helped sick children, tended to injured warriors, and taught several interested women about herbs and remedies. Her presence brought a new perspective to the tribe, and slowly, carefully, she began to build genuine friendships with the people who had once been her captors. Tahoma, fully recovered and stronger than ever, led his people with renewed wisdom and purpose. The experience of nearly dying, of being betrayed by one of his own, and of finding unexpected love had changed him, making him more thoughtful and less quick to resort to violence. When conflicts arose with settlers or other tribes, he sought diplomatic solutions first, though he remained a fierce warrior when battle could not be avoided. 3 months after the wedding, as autumn began to paint the prairie grasses gold and red, Catherine realized she was pregnant. The news brought joy to both Tahoma and the entire tribe, seen as a blessing and a sign that their union was meant to be. Nayeli was especially delighted at the prospect of becoming an aunt. On a cool evening in late autumn, Catherine and Tahoma sat outside their teepee watching the sunset, her hand resting on her still flat belly where their child grew. Tahoma's arm was around her shoulders and they sat in comfortable silence, needing no words to express what they felt. "I never imagined," Catherine said eventually, "that day when your warriors found me hiding under the wagon, that I would end up here, happy, home, loved. The spirits work in mysterious ways," Tahoma replied, kissing the top of her head. "They brought you to me when I needed you most, and in saving my life you gave me a reason to truly live. Do you ever regret it?" Catherine asked, Taking me as your wife, bringing all the complications that came with it? Tahoma turned her face toward his dark eyes intense and sincere. Never. Not for one moment. You are the greatest gift I have ever received, Catherine. Whatever challenges we face, whatever difficulties lie ahead, we will face them together. You and me, our child, our people. We are building something new here. Something precious. A bridge between two worlds that have been at war for too long. Catherine smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. I love you, Tahoma. I loved you from the moment I truly saw you, and I will love you until my last breath. And I love you, my brave, beautiful wife, Tahoma replied. You were meant to be here, meant to be mine, meant to save me in every way a person can be saved. They kissed as the sun disappeared below the horizon, and in that moment, despite all the uncertainty of the world around them, despite the conflict